Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us on a podcast at Dawdle. Extremely grateful that you took out time out of your busy schedule to share your insights, your experiences, and your deep expertise with our audience, which is now truly global. Dawdle is now 125,000 plus community of CXOs and senior leaders from across the globe. We have very interesting set of topics for you, ma'am. But before we go there, would love to, understand your journey. If you could take us to your journey so far to give a good context to our audience.
Thank you so much, Rishikesh. It is actually a fairly interesting and new experience for me to come onto a podcast and, talk about myself, which is probably among the last things which I normally would do. But so I have all through been an IT person, which is surprising because I did an MBA and I sort of moved into the software world and then never wanted to go back. So just going backwards from now backwards, the last few years, I've been working a lot on software acquisitions and software product acquisitions, and setting up the ecosystem to do product engineering, including data centers and, cloud enablement, etc. Understanding regulatory norms, trying to make sure that product engineering goes through as per the plans, and how to make products successful. Prior to that, it was all about outsourcing and services, where the bigger challenge was to take on a large account, make it profitable over a period of time. And all this work has been done with HCL. Before that, again, a couple of other companies. I was a database person. Then my husband and I got into a business. We ran the business for a while and then we sold it off. And this is like quite some time before all this startup and sell off story started in the world. We did it from him back. And of all these years, probably about 12, 15 years in the US and the rest of the time in India and a very short stint in UK. But I have worked across, I think, all the continents, except Antarctica, of course. But we have spanned the world. Product engineering business actually spanned 20 plus countries. It was an interesting story, different languages, different people, different perspectives, but trying to bring them together to a common cause of running a business, a common cause of selling a product, or a common cause of general, now making the software world richer, to say. So that's been the journey. Like I said, it's across the globe, a lot of various different countries, an interesting story. And the last few years, of course, largely. I mean, I've worked in India, I've worked in US and other places.
Yes.
Lately, it's been US. Yeah, that's the journey.
So, which is a country where you have better experiences, in India or in the US?
I don't know if I can say better or worse, but there are the good parts of India
Yeah.
and there are the good parts of the US. US is about discipline, predictability, right? India is about struggle with a few challenges, struggle with a few, policies. And like I said, worked quite some time back there. I know things have changed lately. But so the struggle makes you learn more, makes you go into the deeper layers. The ease that you get in the US doesn't make you struggle. It makes you do the things all right, but it doesn't make you struggle. It doesn't make you look for ideas. So what we end up calling in India, shortcuts or things like that, what do they call it? There's a typical word for it. That's not true here. But having said that, the learning is a lot more there. And because our core understanding of Indians is a lot more, getting productivity becomes easier. Our core understanding of the Americans is a little different. The Americans like to be both domain specific, domain interested, domain skills, as well as administrative skills. So they want to do both together. There is the line between administrative and managerial work and technical work is very thin. They don't try to segregate too much. But in India, there's a big segregation on that, right? So sort of you learn different things. You can crib at times, but as I sit back and think, I feel in every world you learn different things. Britain was different. I mean, there you learn different things altogether because they are so, in a lot of ways, as compared to the Americans, conservative. And India, of course, is fairly different.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for putting all these things in the light. I know you're kind of passionate for talking on acquisitions, and you have done a lot of that as well in your career. So we'll start from that topic. So from the outside, if we see acquisitions look like transactions, but insides they are the real transformations. What, in your experience, truly determines whether a technology or software acquisition becomes successful?
So when you acquire, when you acquire a startup, you're taking up an forward-going business. So there's a way to deal with. When you're taking up old products, you're actually taking up something which is likely to go obsolete soon,
Hmm.
right? And I've done both. So taking up a new business and taking it forward, it's like working with new technology. The risk in both the cases is always technology. One which is going forward and we don't know how it will evolve, and the other which is near its half life, so to say, and tending into obsolescence. But the product by itself, technology is one aspect, architecture is one aspect. The product itself, if it's delivering value to a customer, that'll stay, right? So technology has various types of risks when you acquire from another company, when you take on another company. There are deeper inside things like third party software embedded somewhere inside, which
Yeah.
will sometime it was an openware or a freeware, and suddenly it's going to become a cost for you. There could be various OEMs you have to work with because you're using their protocols and you need those protocols to be upgraded at times and things like that. So going a layer deeper, trying to understand what the technology is, how the architecture is, how modular it is, that becomes very important. You also have to see how forward going it is. If technology is not going forward, but the product looks like it's going forward, then what is it that you need to do with the product? Right? Because you may have to re-platform it. For example, moving from your own server architecture into a cloud server architecture, right? Different challenge because the way things will work there will be different. The way you would monitor and manage would be different. So you need to assess technologically how far you can take it. Then there is the aspect of people. If with the product and the technology, you're taking on people who've been working on it, then people are very important because they know the thing inside out, right? They know that product. And you don't want to lose them until your own team is ready, right? And
Right.
and some of them are really good people. You don't really want to lose them ever. So it's about people's stories and what do people want. People will always look at what's in it for me. So they're going to expect to know their position, their salary, benefits, and growth, right? Maybe in that order, maybe in a reverse order, but it's people. And people, if they are not satisfied with the knowledge in their head, they can move. So you need to be very careful, especially, and identify the core team. Make sure you are keeping the core team fully informed about what you're going to do. Because the core team is about growth of the product. And how will you grow the product? Where, in what direction are you going to take it? You need to tell them. Otherwise, they disconnect. So in places where acquisition seems to be a war room story, where people are sitting and negotiating, that's only the tip of the iceberg. The lower portion where actually transformation has to happen is people. It's regulatory norms and technology and the go forward technology. Plus layers of technology, what's embedded in there which can one day throw up a surprise. That's the level you have to go into to do your due diligence before you can come to an agreement. So the transformation will happen on the growth path for the product, the software product, its technology, on the growth path and involvement of people that have been involved with it, and the new and the upcoming regulatories. For example, a small product, the privacy norms have changed across the world. An old product may not have the same privacy levels embedded in there. You've got to put layers on top, right? So you need to assess everything before you can take on the transition. Where one of the things we've realized is if you're taking on a team, keep the team involved. Tell them what your view is. Tell them what your vision is about the whole thing. And listen to them because sometimes they will tell you, this direction will take you in the wrong direction because this is where the product is typical or this is where it, does something different. So listening to them is good. In a due diligence exercise, in an actual transformation exercise, there may not be too much time, but you still have to spend that time. We found our best practice used to be after deciding the financials, after deciding the technology stack, having a town hall with people and just telling them this is what we understand, this is what we think we want to do. But at the time that you get to the town hall, you are almost ready to pay for the product. So there's no bad. That's when you start, weaving in the chat. But really, their transformation is with understanding layers of technology, creating a platform. We've always worked with a 3, 5, and 10 year. Even if after 5 years, you're saying the product will become obsolete, very certain. We can tell people.
Yes.
But this part of the product will evolve into something different. For example, we took on an email solution which had a workflow embedded. So we told them, look, email is a dime a dozen. Email solution, no one cares. But email workflow solutions are good. But that only has a product, right? If we were to push that, that really pulls the product down. So what we think is if we bake in a workflow, which are used across the world, make it really, really tight. Probably product is a different profile of it, and we sell it in a different way. And we will do that in a period of time. That got the team so happy and excited because they knew the email part was young, and they were quite surprised that we wanted to buy that product, right? So that's how you need to build that vision, and it has to be very realistic. It comes from people who really understand the product and understand what the market wants, right? So you need to have the right technology working with you.
Right.
It's an interesting story, when you really start understanding. And then there are products which are like just based on different geography, different regulation, and you're thinking, how do I make sure that I have one layer which takes care of everything? It almost never happens because now with privacy, everybody wants their data in the country,
Yes.
right? Anonymity in the data that doesn't come in, those regular compliance. But it takes it's a and planning.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking us, for giving your insights on a right, what a right or, product or software acquisition looks like. Now, want to understand from you, like, once you are integrating an acquired software product, it often means merging two, distinct philosophies. And I know that you have already touched upon this thing. That can be speed versus process, agility versus governance. So how have you navigated, those cultural and technical contradictions during integrations?
So when you are bringing people over, right? The first thing, when you take in a decision on acquisition, you paid for it. You got things in place. There is a financial process and a escrow process that goes into maintaining the background of it. But in the front now, we have people and we have software and code which is landed in our data centers, right? So then the real story starts. There is a track which is saying, um, get people into the ecosystem, let them understand us, let us understand them, and make sure that they are with us on all the plans that we have. We start with the town hall, right? We start with a town hall where we go and tell them our plans and say, this is how we see things. And on the technology front, we listen to them. So we are open to listening because we may not have quite understood everything. So that's fine. We are open and this dialogue will continue. We have a 3-year, 5-year, and a 10-year thought process with us. But converting them into hard programs will work with you. They are becoming programs only with your inputs. That is one. The other track, we keep a very senior HR person working with them, making sure that none of their personal issues are getting into the way. So, in the US, people have certain view on their benefits and they want to know because, for example, healthcare is very expensive here. You have to have appropriate healthcare for people. In India, probably different kind of a thing requirement. In UK, healthcare is not so much a concern, but other benefits are a concern, right? So you have to know what they want. South America entirely different. They will talk of entirely different things, and they say we don't have common holidays. How do we manage?
Yes.
So you have to tell them we'll have calendars of different working people and things like that. So you make them comfortable. And then you focus on regulatory requirements. We've had products where the US government has said, you cannot build this product outside US.
Yes.
Because those are products being used by the US government. So, and you have a development team across the world, 20 countries. There are products which are being developed, where Chile and, even places like Russia, Australia, all over the place. We have teams all over the place. So how do you make sure? So setting up the right product build architecture, we hear of all the latest technologies and things. You won't hear this particular story in any of the technologies where the country says, no, the product you build and sell to us should be in a data center in the US and should that particular code should have access only to a core list of people who are Americans, not. So how do you do that? Then you start having layers we ended up we were doing data centers in India. We ended up making a data center because there was no shop. So, that's how the span of work started. And then you have the federal government hopping on your head every 6 months. So those are the things, you focus on to make them successful. So revenue comes with people story. And then your broad 3, 5, and 10 plans, you get all the senior people together and please make it in a way that can work. So 3 years is something which is pretty hard. 5 years can be guidance, and 10 years can be protected. Right?
Yes.
That's what we wanted before, so that people would commit. There are times the pace at which a lot of people would to deliver is not the that's when you start, this thing to be moving in this direction by this time. What do you need? What are the investments? So that the right investment, and you have to do the right to keep the so when you're integrated so community, it's very good. It's important to bring people to talk, and they talk their languages. And
Yes.
somebody is talking the language, somebody is talking, and somebody is talking English. Common languages are English, but they're a common.
Yes.
So that's why the communication forums are like an open war. We're going to talk until we understand, stuff. We take a lot of help with things like presentation so that we say, okay, this is how I understand. I mean, I've learned living in the US for such a long time. There are times I just don't understand so slow. And, make them repeat it. I would look after them for us to make sure we're on the.
Yes.
And there we cannot rush through these topics because a good communication makes everybody think, and that is the better than yes, and then we'd go and realize it was more complex, and then we'd have to go back and try its best. And this I learned from the Swedes. They will set up, they will not start the project total 100% confident. They themselves start. Take 1 year to do a. But
Yes.
what they take 1 year with, it's perfect. That's what we learn in that. Initial discovery, discussion, planning, speed, but that would be what right? And then there is the stuff, make a commitment. That's what builds trust. The people will know if she said it, that I'm making a commitment. When I make a commitment, I'll prove
Yes.
that makes a difference. Because once you start getting languages become just understand, then I'm related to it.
ठीक है. Thank you so much, ma'am, for kind of, running us through this. Now, when we talk about a lot of founders, they basically struggle post acquisition and maintaining that product vision. Now, since you have seen a lot of acquisitions from your experience, what is the best way for acquirers to preserve the entrepreneurial DNA while still embedding a structure and scalability?
Yeah. So, you know what? We've acquired from a higher structure where we were not quite so structured, and from a very poor structure to a point where we were better structured. So, it's about change, right? It's about change. It's about managing change. It's about explaining why that change has to happen. The best change management is good communication,
Yes.
telling people where you're coming from. But that is to make things smooth as you walk over. Maintaining the entrepreneur spirit, maintaining innovation, that's a very different story.
Yes.
Invariably, what we used to end up doing was we knew every product was coming with its own group of people who knew very well what they were up to.
Yes.
We did acquisition about 20 plus acquisitions, right? So we had a team of architects. Over a period of 2 years, we ended up having about 12, 15 product architects, technology architects, business architects. So we actually created a forum for them where we said, let's come and think of new things with reference to your products, with reference to what's happening in the world, with reference to where we want to go. So, lot of planning would happen there, or lot of thinking would happen there, loud thinking. We'd let people come and give wild ideas. It was like, I remember once in my MBA days, somebody said, what's a wild idea? And I said, a blue pressure cooker would be a wild idea, right? So it's something like that. You let them do wild things. You say, once a month, we are going to do just this much, 2 hours. And we listen to people. But from that, we had a very good technology architect who could, bring all these ideas out of people and put it into a form that we could all see and say, okay, this is a new innovation thought process that we could go into. So we actively worked on bringing people with ideas together and giving them a free format. I mean, some of them worked with us, some of them just did not because they were so involved with whatever they were doing, and that was fine. The thing was, keep open minded, keep listening, and those who want to come and contribute, listen to them. But have a core group of people working on this, trying to convert all these thoughts into some kind of a product idea. We actually, after acquiring these 20 products, we came out with 4 products, which were evolution of some of those products, a combination and evolution of those products, but they were like a new path altogether and looked like would do better in the business world. So you have to keep driving or giving the forum. People drive themselves very well, but if you give them an environment and a forum, it's good. For example, we placed uh, certain benefits on patents filed. If you file patents, here's the benefit you get. As such, if you file the patent, it will be in the company's name. But if it's your patent, if it brings something, just 10% share you'll get. Things like that. That got people moving because patents are, how shall I put it? They are like on the side inflow of money, which gives you a lot of pleasure. You feel like, oh, I did something good. I mean, I know it. I was seeing my daughter had a patent, which till, it just keeps paying her once a year and she's just happy, you know, because I have to do a job, that's okay, but this patent brings me all the money I need. So that's the way, people become happier because over a period of time, that's what gives you the financial leverage you are looking at to be able to work freely, right? And not be tied to a job or a thought process or something like that. So it's good to develop people in that direction. So we actually incentivized in that manner, gave them the forums, gave them share of the patents, and let them dabble in new things. Of course, that was 20% of their time. 80% was supposed to be productivity, because the business cannot hurt. So we sort of let them do that.
Great, ma'am. And you have also led teams across India as well as in the US. What differences have you observed in the work culture that
So
impact?
now, so let me tell you, I said 20 plus countries, right?
Yes.
It's different everywhere. It's different.
Ye-
For example,
mm,
at least in the current world, India is very, how shall I say, aggressive and productive. Now, people will work more than 8 hours, people 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours. They will work
Yes.
and they will produce the output. In America, it's about work life balance.
Yes.
More so, reason is, for example, here you don't get daily support for things,
Yes.
right? So you have no choice. If you have to eat, you have to go and get food for yourself.
Yes.
If you have to take care of kids, you have to get off on time because daycare will close or whatever. In India, you hire, keep at home, work from home and monitor, right? And then you can work like 18 hours. Who cares?
Yes.
So that's the difference. That's a difference. That the drive is very different. But because here people are, they will stay mentally involved with the work. They may be doing other things, but they stay mentally involved. They never switch off that easily. So they will come back with some output. It'll be slower. It'll definitely be about 10% slower, but it'll be slightly more effective. So that's one thing you will see. Here, people will, in their benefits, they will ask about work life balance. Do you encourage work life balance? I have a small kid. I cannot stay more than 8 hours. I will have situations when the kid is not well and I have to stay away. Do you allow work from home? Those are the questions they'll ask, right? In India, can you work more than 8 hours? Yes. Can you work more than 10 hours? Yeah, most of the time, right? That is one difference. The language barriers, the cultural barriers are there. But I have seen this better managed. For example, around the Shara Diwali, India is like totally into festival mode, right? Too many time off. People will take their time off. In the US, that's ramping up to Thanksgiving. Especially if you're in retail, if you're in online businesses, you're ramping up to Thanksgiving. That's the time they start like struggling and finally, putting a closure window on changes and things like that. So that's when, it's like a 4 or 5 weeks of trying to manage everything, every festival together kind of a story. But if you sit with them calmly and tell them, that's the way you take Christmas and Thanksgiving, we take the share and Diwali. So we understand that times are not matching, but let's find a good calendar to get everything together. I mean, there was an account here in New York and Taylor where we had the struggle. Now they kept saying, you can't take time off at this time. It's our critical time. I said, yeah, it is. So it's our critical time. So let's sit and look at the calendar. And we finally ended up creating a calendar that worked for all of us in a way that they had to be patient and we had to look at people who would not take longer time offs. It was a trade off, but we had to show them, it's very important. It was a 4-month calendar, which, was a struggle to create. For example, 24 bar 7 support never stopped, but changes had to stop. They would stop in November. We were not available in October. They had to stop in September, which is not acceptable, right? So we had to keep a thinner staff going. We had to find things which could be done when they could be done. But it was an open conversation. They finally accepted it and they worked with us. And we made sure nothing came down. I mean, during Thanksgiving, we were fully there. The Black Friday, 24 bar 7 sales, it's very critical. One severity one and they lose business. I remember prior to the time we got there had been a severity one during Thanksgiving, Black Friday. And they were shouting all over the place, we lost $5 million worth of business. And we said, now sitting here in December, we can only look back and say, here are the things we'll do. But if severity one has to be controlled, they used to have 4 or 5 severity ones in a month, which is like, seriously, what kind of an ecosystem have you set up? It was really bad. It was totally unstable. It had become more unstable because changes were not being analyzed before being rolled in. You have to know what the change will do. And we stopped that. By the time I left that account, it would have a severity one once in 3 months or so. No more than that. It still had because there were certain old architecture products there. Work with the different cultures. We had like I told you, the South Americans said our holidays just don't match with yours. We said, yeah, that's correct. So we ended up making different calendars, which is now best practice in almost all the companies, right? But they have multiple calendars and people have started understanding this. But there was a phase of time about 10 years back where it was a struggle. It took us an effort to make those calendars.
Right.
The other aspect of cross-cultural thing is communication. Having a good cadence for communication. So we used to have town halls once in 3 months, once in a month, depending on what stage we were. We would have town halls. It was pre-announced. Once a year we'd announce the 4 town halls, and we would go and talk of what we've achieved till now and what the challenges have been. And then we'd translate that whole session and send it across in different languages so that people who still struggled during the town hall or could not join because it was late in the night for them, they could at least hear it and in their languages. That actually helped a lot. We had people asking questions and things like that. They came back appreciating the fact that, at least once in a while you come and tell us what's happening. Otherwise, being so far away from the main company, we sort of get disconnected. So that also helped them a lot. We traveled and just met people. Going to Japan, talking with people there, the expectation in the world is entirely different. You go to some place in South America, it will be very different, right? Although very English influenced, America influenced. South America is very, very North America influenced in a lot of ways. But Japan's different. UK is different. European countries, very different. They have their own ways in life. So it helped to go and just meet. I remember going to Amsterdam to meet a team, and they largely talked their local language. And listening to them, they just keep switching into their local language from English and say, excuse us, they just get to doing that all the time. That's when we started translating our town halls because we realized the nuances, people missed if they did not hear that in their own way, in their own language. So translations, those also helped a lot. And of course, when you share progress, when you share challenges, people appreciate it because it helps them think along with you. And that's when you're, they say success is in the fact when all of the people you are working with are looking in the same direction, right? That's where, because then everybody knows what the next step should be and they work together in that.
Ma'am, you have been an entrepreneur yourself, you have built your own venture in IT services. And what did that entrepreneurial journey teach you that even decades inside corporate leadership had not? And how did that period shape your approach towards innovation and risk taking?
Well, let's first talk risk taking. So, in your own business, risks are largely financial and then people because you are looking at maintaining a money flow in the right way. Working capital has to work well, and that's important. And if there is a trouble with the working capital, there's trouble with people because if people don't trust they'll be paid the next month, they are definitely not going to focus. Plus, getting the right quality was always an issue. So, in the entrepreneurial world, you could find solutions. We actually did a lot of outsourcing. So, just setting up outsourcing, having the right technology, setting up the process, figuring out what to outsource, what to leave on site, those were our core skills. And that basically changed our perspective from what do I need to achieve from the next task to what is the outcome of all these tasks or the work, because the business outcome was eventually important. The impact was eventually important, right? So you raised your perspective to understanding outcome and impact. But in companies, the outcome and impact is established. You are in a senior position, you will do the same thing there itself. The financial risk is to a level of does your project put the company on risk? And then the company has policies and methods to fix that, right? They won't let you sell the project if they feel it's a risky project. So the entrepreneurship slowly, I would say, it reduces from focusing entirely on risks to focusing on the impact of the work that you're going to do, to then weaving it within the constraints of the company policy, right? So those are, it's a difference that you have to understand. In your own business, the company policy is what you want to make it. So you will look at the impact overall, what you're getting out of it. Are you getting some credibility? Are you getting some money? And you'll phrase that together. In a company structure, it may be different. Sometimes companies take on loss-making projects only because they give you a credibility into that customer. So it's an investment they make. So you work along with that. So there is a slightly different way of looking at it. So risk drives things in a different way. But once you reach a certain position, it's the same like running a small company of yourself within a larger company. So you're running a small company within a large. So I remember setting up, we were working with IKEA. We ended up building it into a $26-30 million piece of work in 2 years' time, right? So I was driving that piece of work. We had a lot of people. We acquired that level of business within. But it was a small business running within the larger company, right? It had to give its P&L, it had to give its, what are the values, etc. And that the time that the company starts focusing on it is when they say, okay, how long will this business work for us? 10 years, 5 years, 6 years? How do we make it work? Right? So then it becomes a different story. After a certain position, having your own company to having a smaller business within a larger business, almost the same. The company offers you a structure, offers you a safety net of financials. And that, of course, to some people, it's more comfortable and they work better. And to some people, it's like, I can sleep now. So there's a difference in people, right? But mostly people work well within the constraints of it. I mean, I worked both ways and I figured at the end of it, it didn't seem too different. It seemed fine. The initial settling down, it may have taken time. It seemed fine. It seemed similar. It seemed similar, like, I had this motto of what leaves my desk is my pride, which was always there even when you do your own business, right? So that is the kind of credibility you build within a company, with a customer, with your own company, whatever it takes.
And ma'am, related to this only, I had this topic and I kind of really feel like, it all depends on the culture, like within the organization that, which, so when you look back, like, how do you connect the dots between your entrepreneurial experience and your work in a large scale global operations? Do you think intrapreneurship within corporations can ever replicate the agility of a true entrepreneurship?
It can actually, because within an organization also, they are not looking at sitting on things for a long time. So it's like this, it's up to you how you take it. But I have seen that I remember doing a due diligence on a healthcare product, which was the company was thinking acquire or not acquire. So I did the due diligence. I looked at all the aspects, created a recommendation, created a price point for them to buy at. And they said, if we can have it in 3 to 4 weeks, it will be fine. I said, 3 to 4 weeks, which company is going to look at you for that longer time? Let's do it in 2 weeks. Let's create our recommendation. Rest we can leave it to you to buy or not buy, right? So you could limit your input to a point that you can give to the company. From a financial viewpoint, we made a recommendation, but after that, the company has to think longer, different ways. The CFO would come in and give his parameters. The CEO would come and give his parameters, and everybody would try and assess that particular recommendation and due diligence appropriately. And that can be a longer negotiation. Then they talk, the owners and owners will talk, or CEO and owners will talk, that becomes a negotiation beyond the technology, the regulatory, the people aspects, right? It becomes a negotiation beyond. Sometimes those negotiations are not known to even the senior most people in the company, because the CFO and the CEO would go and take a call of a certain kind. So we had situations where some acquisitions were done where we wondered why it was done, but only after 6 months it's actually gelled on us as the real good reason, because there was a viewpoint on those products which was not visible to us, which became visible later. So those things can happen so long as you understand your scope and deliver to your scope in the best way that the market and the business can accept. I think it's similar, but beyond that, I mean, the way I look at it, I did a scope that I needed to do and then let it work. Because I remember giving a recommendation for pricing of that healthcare product. They ended up buying at half the price. And in my mind, that wasn't fair to the company. You have to be fair. But then they had given stock in HCL, which was something which was beyond our recommendations, right? So those are the kind of things that happen.
But also kind of, one of the things that has started happening a lot these days also, like companies which are like IT giants, Accentures of the world, SCLs of the world, they have started acquiring a lot of small tech startups. Like there is a separate team, like, which is into acquisitions, and they are working very closely with these startups. Do you think that these companies are also wanting to promote innovation which can happen outside their ecosystem and then can be integrated within their ecosystem?
Any company would promote such innovation, which is in their vision in the long term, right? While in their current ecosystem, they don't want to bring that into their current ecosystem because of, they have to maintain books for the market, right? So they don't want to do that, but they still want to encourage. So there are times, at a time AI was becoming so popular, people were investing in different tracks on AI and waiting to watch which is really going to evolve. Because when large companies get into these technologies, they actually have to leverage the technology in the existing business as soon as possible, right? Because that's the productivity they want to transfer to another. So, like HCL has customers where if they put AI, the support team strength would reduce, the cost would reduce, right? But you need to do that. You can't experiment with that with the customer there itself, right? You can only adapt to fixed the situation for a customer. So there they like to dabble in things which are on the side, right? And it's good because it evolves a larger workforce like this, people who are working on it. People, what these companies end up doing is giving you the financial strength to stay afloat. They are investors, right? They are investing in a certain technology, but it will be technology which will be in sync. Now, suddenly, a IT company starts working with robotics, probably not. But a hardware and infrastructure company works with robotics, yes, possible. They use robotics a little more. Design, they use robotics, maybe. So it's what works and what is in sync with their businesses. I have seen health tech companies rather, encouraging a lot of these AI techniques in pathological work, in things like, x-rays, mammograms and stuff like that, where they want to use AI. Well, if you notice today, AI is largely graphical processing, so if you understand intelligence, we have 5 senses. It's only one sense that AI is using at this point, which is visual. They're not using the other 4 senses yet. They probably will soon start using the hearing, the audio part of our senses very actively. But there are 3 other senses they haven't got into: the smell and the touch and stuff like that, and the taste, right? Those will probably come later. But I think companies do encourage it has to be in sync with their world, and they create these ecosystems. It's times considered growing the industry, and at times is considered growing their own world with leveraging on the side. As long as it doesn't show in the books but shows in their credits, they are happy with it. They don't want to show in the books because the books may become difficult to handle for other investors of the company.
Also, since you have been seeing a lot of startups like from a very long period of time, right? Do you think this mindset which founders are developing these days, like So I was talking to a founder yesterday. So he quit his job. He's 22 years old. He quit his job and he started working on an idea with a firm belief that he will get invested. He will get investors, but he didn't get investors. And within 6 months, he's now shutting down the business. He's going back. So this kind of a mindset that I'm working on something and I'm dependent on somebody to put in money so that my business can run. Is it the right mindset, or the mindset should be like, ki, if I'm working on something, even if investment doesn't come, I should be able to run the business across?
So let's step back on that thought process.
Yeah.
If I were the person or you were the person doing this, what are your concerns? If you have a livelihood in place, you can take more risks. You can stay more persistent. Persistence is important, but not at the cost of being able to live or being able to survive, right? So, having said that, in today's world, you start a business and you try to get in a venture capitalist or an investor into your business. For example, I know of a lot of startups, and like, Google and so many companies encourage these startups. But who do they encourage? Where they find value to the thought that if this becomes really good, then it's a good thought. Example, I know somebody who was working in a startup which was trying to produce milk from mammary glands cells and wanted to take it to a production level. Now that's a huge process. But if it happens, it's so innovative, right? It's so innovative. But so they could do it in the lab. They could show it's possible to do that, develop those cells, see it produce milk. But how do we make a production go of it? Because a business will only exist on production, right? So at that point, they were able to get a lot of investors, large numbers. They got funds like crazy because people got very excited with the thought process. They saw it in the lab, they saw a certain amount come out, and they said, okay, what does it take to work out the whole idea? Now they're working with big investments. They are like trying to evolve a production setup out of this. So the thing is, if an investor comes in, it's an assurance of your idea that it is likely to work. I'm willing to put in money. So it's good to go for investors. If you don't get investors, either the idea is not good or your resilience is not good enough because you have a life to live. So it's not an attitude of, oh, I just thought let it be. It's because once somebody starts, they have to do deeper thinking. It is only when they realize that whatever it takes to get to that point is not worthwhile or is going to take too long and I don't have the sustenance, right? So I have seen youngsters getting into businesses doing very well. One small little idea just multiplies like anything, right? Especially these online businesses. But I have seen them fade out of the business also very soon. They made money, zoop out. So sometimes I feel that's today's world. We had this thought of what I do, like I said, what leaves my desk is my pride. So I was so focused on trying to make the best out of it, I wouldn't think of 20 different things. But the youngsters today do think of multiple things. And if one doesn't work, then switch to the next and to the next. It's the generation thing. It's not a Gen Z thing, but it's a generation thing. I mean, I hear a lot about the Gen Zs today, but I find them very sensible, honestly. I mean, they may be woke, but then think of it like that. In my time, I was half woke in that manner, so I don't mind that wokeness. I do feel that a little more persistence is important for them. But in general, I feel they're all doing a lot better because they have confidence in what they're doing. And in a previous generation, that confidence was not there. There was still the need to have the best job in the world. But nowadays, they don't care about all these jobs. They care about life in the way they want to live, and there has to be some money at the back of it. So interesting thought process.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insights. Very insightful discussion. We touched upon a lot of things, starting from acquisitions to entrepreneurship to even talking about life philosophy at the end. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insights. And I hope to see you soon inside India.
Thank you so much. Actually, it was interesting talking. I was in the beginning like, what am I going to talk about? Like I said, you generally don't tend to talk about yourself, but once you start talking, you don't realize where it's coming from.
Yes, yes. And that is our
Thank
goal
you.
at Dawdle, ma'am, to bring in all the best folks from across the globe who don't talk much on LinkedIn. So we want
Yeah.
them to talk on Dawdle.
I created my LinkedIn profile with my daughter sitting on my head. Make it, make it, make it. Make it. What's the big deal? And after that, I've forgotten all about it. I don't know. I should be telling you, you should update it once in a while. There's
Yes.
nothing to update. I mean, I can't pour my
Now
mind
you
into
don't need it,
LinkedIn.
ma'am. So it's fine.
Well, that's great. Then in that case,
Thank you so much, ma'am, for
yeah.
joining.
Thank you so much.